Hello, and welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And the first real week of college football is down. And boy, what an opening week it was. We have lots to cover. Some teams really surprised us, and some teams really didn't. So, Tim, without further ado, you ready to go?
Let's run it.
Let's do it. So the first thing we do every single week is go over the new AP poll, and it goes as such. Alabama stays atop at number 1. Georgia moved up to number 2, flip-flop with Ohio State, who goes down to number 3. Michigan jumps into the top 5 at 4, and Clemson slides down to number 5. 6 through 10, Texas A&M stays the same. Oklahoma moves up 2. Notre Dame moves down 3 at number 8. Baylor and USC each move up a couple clicks to 9 and 10 respectively. And then 11 through 15, Oklahoma State bumps up to number 11. We have a newcomer in at number 12.
Florida flew in.
Florida coming out of nowhere from unranked to number 14. Utah slides down to number 13 after their loss to the aforementioned Gators. Michigan State and Miami each bump up a spot to 14 and 15. Arkansas raised 3 spots to 16 over their win against Cincinnati. Pittsburgh stays pat at 17. NC State and Wisconsin slide down to 18 and 19. Kentucky stays pat at 20. And rounding out the top 25, we have BYU, who jumped up 4 spots, Ole Miss and Wake Forest, who moved down a click, Tennessee, who jumps into the top 25, and Houston rounding us out. So the biggest risers and fallers from this week, obviously Florida, who jumps from unranked all the way up to number 12 after their big win at home against Utah. I don't think they should have jumped that high. I think that was a little.
I think it was
a
bit of an overshot. But
I think it's a bit of.
I get it. It's a big win for them, but given some of the teams that are still behind them,
but
bit of an overshot.
We'll see. USC jumped up 4 spots into the top 10 with their 66-14 thrashing of Rice. And Arkansas moved up 3 spots with a ranked win of their own. The biggest fallers, Utah, on the other end of that Florida game, losing. They moved down 6 spots. NC State, even though they won, it was a 21-20 matchup against Eastern Carolina. And that was a scary one. And there's no reason
they got a little lucky. I can't lie.
Yeah, even though it was a rivalry game and ECU's given them fits in the past, there's no really excuse for that with NC State's aspirations sliding down 5 spots. And Notre Dame, you lose to a tough Ohio State team in Columbus. I mean, you slide down 3 spots, but what are you going to do? You can't really lose when you're at the top and not expect to take a little bit of a slide. So, Tim, any other thoughts?
Biggest thing for me that I think is a little interesting is Ohio State wins a game with a top 5 team and bumps down a spot. I know Georgia's performance was obviously super impressive, but still, that was quite a win by Ohio State, and for them to drop one is interesting. I mean, I can still understand why. I kind of wish Clemson had fallen a little bit further, given their very iffy performance that we saw against a overall pretty weak Georgia Tech team. But I mean, there's a lot of movement that makes sense. I kind of wish that Miami would have jumped a little bit higher. I wish Florida hadn't jumped so high.
They hung a 70 bomb against Bethune-Cookman. As a Miami fan, that was my expectation. Score 70 points or don't even bother showing up. So I'm really not surprised they just kind of like moved up the 1 click. I mean, moving up is moving up, and keep winning.
There's definitely not much that doesn't make sense to me in this top 25. So I mean, it's a pretty fair listing for right now.
Yeah. So now let's go over some of the games from this week. And there were a lot of good ones, starting on Thursday with the backyard brawl. West Virginia taking on number 17, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh came out on top 38-31. And that was a back and forth contest. You never really knew who was going to win. It was tied 10-10 going at the half. And then, West Virginia would score, and then Pitt would score twice. West Virginia would score twice, and then Pitt would score twice, with the last one being that 56-yard pick 6 by MJ Devonshire to win the game. Now, another real story there was the quarterback matchup, JT Daniels and Caden Slovis. JT Daniels, his 1 interception was the pick 6 that ultimately cost West Virginia the game. But hey, these rivalry games are fun, and that was a really, really good one. So let's move on to the other Thursday game that we have here. And Tim, I'm going to give you the floor for that one because Penn State took on Purdue, and Tim, you were at that game. It was a great game.
Great game.
It's a great game, but Purdue fell just short, losing 35-31 at home. Tim, take it away.
It was a bit of a slow one to start. The first quarter, pretty much really nothing happened until the start of the second, where it all really started with a gutsy 4th and 2 call, although they were in Purdue's territory. Penn State went on to convert that, and that opened up the path to their first touchdown of the game. Purdue bounced back and got a touchdown of their own, but they really started building momentum until they had a fumble on the following drive. That really just deflated, the entire stadium, really. And then began one of the biggest frustrations of the night, which was Purdue's lack of ability to tackle.
Missed tackles.
It was utterly abysmal. I don't know where they were taught. I don't know where they were taught to just go with the shoulder, but there were so many times where they were just like, I'm going to lay the biggest hit stick in the world, and they just bounced off, and the guy just kept running. And that was true on Penn State's second touchdown there, which was a 67-yard touchdown to tight end Brenton Strange, which really just opened up things for Penn State. But the second half was where Purdue really found their stride, and they just completely flipped the script, scored multiple touchdowns, forced Penn State to punt on their first 3. And then what was arguably the funniest or most viral part of the night, which most of us didn't know until after the fact, was the sort of infamous puke 6, where Purdue safety Chris Jefferson picked off Sean Clifford and took it back 72 yards to the house. It was a great pick 6 return, but then you could clear he was not feeling too great afterwards, and blew a little bit afterwards. But the end of the game was where really a lot happened. And Purdue had every opportunity to seal this, despite, in my opinion, a lot of things going against them throughout the game. They had the ball twice within the last 6 minutes and 30 seconds of the game and simply failed to run the clock out. The clock management was awful. They didn't mix in enough running when they needed to, and when their passes failed, it stopped the clock and they gave Penn State the ball back. And eventually, Penn State just capitalized on one of their way too many opportunities. On their third possession after Purdue took the lead, they finally went and put down a masterclass drive, 80 yards for the score, in only 1 minute and 25 seconds. So that really deflated us, and we barely had any time to get back, and we just weren't able to put enough together. But in general, I would say some of the highlights is Penn State fans. Sean Clifford may drive you crazy, but he came up when he needed to win this game. I know a lot of Penn State fans that are like, this guy is giving us heart attacks, but hey, he did what he needed to. He had a pretty solid stat line. 20 for 37, 282 yards, 4 touchdowns, and that 1 interception. That was the pick 6.
The puke 6.
Yes. The thing that was most interesting to me is Purdue's first 2 touchdowns were both rushing touchdowns, which brings me to my next point, is that Purdue actually ran the ball with semi-success, which was a miracle. That we haven't seen that in forever, which is something I think that's good for us. But overall, Purdue's offense is going to be fine. That was a question mark for some people, is we lost a ton of offensive talent in terms of wide receivers. Our top 3 wide receivers are gone. But new incomer transfer Charlie Jones put up a massive performance, 12 receptions, 153 yards, and a touchdown. So you won't see those types of games that often. I think they'll spread the ball more in general. But overall, he has been he showed his presence right away. So what a game. It was a roller coaster for me there.
What a game.
In one of our other videos, you could hear what my voice was after the fact. But yeah, I think we're going to be all right. It's a tough loss, but I think they'll learn from it and bounce back.
They're going to be fine. It's a long season, and one loss does not define a season. But Tim, after your soliloquy about your Purdue Boilermakers, we're just going to keep it right on moving with the Saturday games, starting in Boone, North Carolina, where North Carolina and Appalachian State played a basketball game disguised as a football game. Because if you like offense and you like high-scoring games, that is the game for you.
Both teams in the 60s?
63-61 UNC came out.
Am I not mistaken that Appalachian State scored 40 points in the fourth quarter?
Yeah. Yeah, that was totally nuts. 6 touchdowns by Appalachian State in the fourth quarter alone, 55 points in the fourth quarter. It was absolutely insane where it was back
Defense?
and forth and
Maybe
back and
not.
forth. And maybe not. Drake May is the real deal from UNC. He looked fantastic. 9 touchdown passes in his first 2 games, with 4 more against Appalachian State. And Chase Bryce, the super senior, he held his own with 6 touchdown passes of his own. It was just absolutely full of offense. Moving on, we'll go to the Swamp in Florida. And I talked about
the game to watch.
This was the game to watch. Utah was my team to look out for because I was curious to see whether they could stand up to the hype, and they did, kind of.
They just fell a little short. And no, granted, all the credit to Florida. Florida played a fantastic game to win that game.
Oh, they did.
And especially
No
Anthony
doubt.
Richardson. Oh man, did dude
Welcome
look comfortable out
to
there.
the Anthony Richardson experience, where his stat line is absolutely nuts. Passing, it may not look that impressive, but he was efficient. 17 of 24 for 168, and on the ground, 11 rushes, 106 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
Take off.
Yeah, he can run. He sprayed on him, and he pretty much won the game.
He was the definition of dual threat in that game. You really, if you didn't contain him one way, he was going to beat you the other.
You couldn't stop him. And although Utah was driving back for the win, a interception by Amari Burney with 17 seconds left to go in the end zone sealed it. And that is a quality win for Florida head coach Billy Napier in his debut. And of course, Florida, we saw how that moved them in the polls all the way up to number 12. And then Saturday night, Ohio State, they had a sluggish first half, but then they came back and beat Notre Dame 21-10. It was an ugly win, but it's the kind of win that great teams are able to pull off. CJ Stroud, it wasn't like a Heisman-worthy performance, but again, it was good enough to win.
It was a gritty performance, though, and that's what you need to stay as part of the best of the best. When things aren't going well or aren't going quite like you expect it, how are you going to respond? And especially in that second half, Ohio State responded. Losing Jackson Smith and Jigba in that first quarter to the injury really hurt their offense. And you could tell that they were just kind of out of sorts without him out there. But the next man up. They had guys step up and make plays down the stretch, and it ended up being huge for them coming away with that victory.
And that's what you got to do. Notre Dame looked really good in the first half, holding that explosive Ohio State offense to just 7 points and actually holding the lead. But, a gritty team, a gritty grudge match, and just an overall good game. And on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, in what was not a good game, Georgia absolutely took it to Oregon, winning.
Bo picks anybody?
49-3. That is for the number 11 team, Oregon.
That was ugly.
That was really, really ugly. And Stetson Bennett and Georgia's defense really erased all of the doubters. They just
Stetson Bennett all of a sudden looks like kind of the real deal at quarterback, with everybody talking about Georgia's defense kind of carrying them to that chip. Like, Stetson Bennett was absolutely slinging it out there.
Mailman masterclass, 25 of 31 for 368 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and the guy even ran for 1. So, mailman masterclass. And of course, you mentioned it earlier, Bo Nix looked more like Bo Picks, but I think that's more credit to that's more credit to the Georgia defense and how good they are.
Georgia's defense is just that good, but also there's some decision making there on some of those plays, especially at least one of the interceptions where it's just like, man, it's just when you get in the funk, sometimes it's hard to break out of it. But they were down bad.
It's definitely a combination of both. And to quickly wrap up the week, Florida State and LSU. Florida State really they came in LSU. And LSU looked terrible. LSU looked awful. Brian Kelly in his LSU debut. Yeah, and that's the sad thing. I don't think either one of these teams are very good. I really don't.
Florida State is 2-0, but first game great. Second game, they did win at LSU. Props to them. That's still a big win. But this LSU team is not the LSUs that we've seen in the past. And we've seen a little bit of that drop off over the last couple of years, ever since that 2019 championship. But this Florida State team, I don't know who deserved to win that game. neither maybe.
And as a Miami fan, Miami plays Florida State November 5th, and guess how concerned I am about that game that we're going to lose.
Probably not very much at the moment, but a lot of
Zero.
things can change. You never know. Perhaps Florida State will fix some things, and I mean, it's hard to say fix some things. They are 2-0.
Let me put it this way: if Florida State can show anything other than the team they already are, this will be the same old Florida State team that have missed however many bowl games that they have in years past. I'm really, really not worried about it. But good games all week nonetheless. And to wrap it up, I'm going to go through the team of the week and the team to look out for. And it's very obvious who the team of the week is this week. It's Georgia.
Them dogs.
With the utter domination, how good Stetson Bennett looked, how good the defense looked, even
not
after
only utter domination, but they were supposed to be they were facing what was supposed to be the 11th best team in the country, and they dismantled them.
Well, Oregon is very much not the 11th best team in the country.
That's what it's supposed to be.
Supposed to be, but
definitely not.
But Georgia looks like the second best team in the country.
Maybe a well-oiled machine coming out the gate.
This program, there's no slowing down, and they are picking up right where they left off. But now let's move on to my team to look out for, and we'll take a trip to Iowa City and to look at the Hawkeyes.
Oh, what a team.
Because they go on to play Iowa State, and that is the biggest rivalry.
We didn't even talk about that game.
No, we did not, but we're going to talk about it right now because the previous week, Iowa put up a measly 7 points against South Dakota State.
Not just a touchdown, a field goal and 2 safeties.
A pair of safeties.
What? Iowa is the definition of all defense, no offense.
Well,
they got nothing going for them.
Well, now we're going to see what this Iowa team is really made of.
Because they're going to have an actual legitimate test with a team that is going to put up more than 3 points, even on an Iowa defense. I can assure you that.
And of course, this is an in-state rivalry game. Everybody in the state of Iowa is taking one side or the other. It's going to be a battle. What's this Iowa team going to do?
Are they going to be able to bounce back and, find some offense? Purdue did steal 2 of their wide receivers, so.
Well, hey, tune in for that one. But that's all we got for our college football recap of week 1. It was a very fun week, and we'll be looking to recap the rest of the weeks as the college football season unfolds. So if you like more from us, we'll have plenty of college football content, lots of NFL content, and all other sports that you may need. If you want it, chances are we got it. So like and subscribe for more from us. And until next time, we out.